Welcome to the Legends Behind the Craft podcast, where we feature top leaders in the wine and craft beverage industry with your host, Drew Hendricks. Now, let's get started with the show.
Drew Hendricks here. I'm the host of the Legends Behind the Craft podcast, where I talk with leaders in the wine and craft beverage industry, from tech companies that help wineries operate at maximum efficiency, to today's guest, Jim Snediker, CEO of Stock Mfg, whose company ensures hospitality staff remain on brand through fashion-forward workwear. Past guests of Legends Behind the Craft include Megan Rounds of Rounds Design, Paul Salcido of Bottle Van, and Ashley Dubois Leonard of Innovant. If you haven't listened to these yet, be sure to check them out and subscribe. Today's episode, it's brought to you by Barrels Ahead. At Barrels Ahead, we work with you to implement a one-of-a-kind content strategy, one that highlights your authenticity, tells your story, and makes your business stand out from your competitors. Jim, in short, at Barrels Ahead, we unlock your brand story to unleash your revenue. Go to barrelsahead.com today to learn more. Now, before I introduce today's guest, I want to give a big thank you to Paul Salcido of Bottle Van. Check out last week's show to learn about Paul's amazing journey from growing up in rural Napa Valley to becoming a technology innovator in Silicon Valley. I am super excited to talk with today's guest, Jim Snediker, and I want to thank Dr. Jeremy Weiss of Rise 25 for introducing us. When Jeremy told me about Jim and his company, I knew I needed to have him on the show. Jim is the co-founder and CEO of Stock Mfg, where he leads strategy and business development. Now, Stock was founded back in 2012 as a heritage fashion brand, but quickly developed a strong cult following among Chicago's hospitality industry. A big turning point was when Alinea, one of the top-ranked restaurants in the world, approached Stock to create a custom uniform program for their staff. After that, other prominent establishments followed, including Goose Island, RPM Steak, and Soho House. Today, Stock is the go-to outfitter for some of the best bars, restaurants, and hotel brands in the world. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Hey, Drew. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on.
Yeah, for sure.
So you got quite a story here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'm dying to hear about the story of Stock.
Okay. How deep do you want me to go? Born in Minneapolis, February 1983, or should we fast forward a little bit?
Touch on the highlights. When did you learn to walk?
I heard I was about 11 months old, is what my mom tells me. Yeah. My background prior to Stock, which has really been the majority of my professional life at this point, I was in sales and marketing. The last real corporate job I had was at Career Builder, actually. I was running their, I was working out of their burgeoning media department at Career Builder. And I worked my way up into some enterprise sales positions and quit and started my own thing, which I did for about a year and a half, which ultimately led to the beginnings of Stock in 2012. Where
did the inspiration for Stock come from?
Oh man, I mean, the original inspiration was a vertically integrated men's fashion brand. So Mike, Tim, and I, founders of the brand, founded. We had a factory we were partnered with in Chicago. So we were doing all of our own manufacturing out of there. So we worked out of the back of this old factory on the west side of Chicago. We were designing, developing, manufacturing everything ourselves. And kind of just built the business out of there. And the name Stock actually comes from the Union Stockyards. So we had this sort of, that was the hub of both, blue collar immigrant job creation in Chicago in the, 19th and early 20th century, as well as a hub for white collar innovation, like the options exchange, the futures exchange came out of speculating on the hog markets. So we really, that just kind of, Henry Ford also got the idea for the assembly line from visiting the slaughterhouses there. So that was really like the ethos when we started the brand back then, was we were going to make high-end American-made stuff at an affordable price, and we were going to do it. At the time we were doing everything in Chicago, and that was really our vision for the company.
So originally it was a fashion brand that.
Yep.
And now it's evolved into a full hospitality workwear.
Yeah. And, I think a testament, I'm wearing like a uniform piece of ours right now that I wear all the time. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I think a testament to what we do is we design our uniforms to be almost a replacement for clients that are used to going retail. Sure, plenty of people already have a relationship with Cintas or whatever other uniform company, but the real itch we scratched from the beginning was like people were going to J. Crew and buying 100 shirts and going somewhere else and buying vests and all this stuff, going to Suit Supply for suits, and we're able to just do that all ourselves in house, guarantee the continuity and also like the customer service that comes with being a B2B company. So that's really what we've sort of prided ourselves on is building a uniform program and aesthetic that is looks like it's retail quality, which
That's
it
amazing.
is.
Going back to the early days, though, starting as a fashion brand, what were some of the challenges launching an actual fashion brand in the U.S. with U.S. made merchandise?
I don't know that we have enough time for me to talk about all the challenges. I'll put it this way: we gave, and there's people doing it really well still, manufacturing in the U.S. And we gave, without going into the whole story, every single dollar and piece of effort we had to building and maintaining manufacturing in Chicago. And especially with the way our business evolved, they're just, from a supply chain standpoint, from a cost standpoint, there was just no way for us to keep all of these operations in Chicago. So we're doing the majority of our stuff in Turkey these days, although we still do make aprons and a lot of face masks this past year in Chicago. But the challenges are myriad. It's there's stuff we would make where we'd cut it at one guy's house and go pick the cut pieces up and drive it over to another factory to sew it. And then, hey, we got to put snaps on these, but the guy who does the kick press isn't at the factory today. So Tim, my partner, would have to drive over to the factory and manually put snaps on at the kick press. And now it's just, we've got really dialed, we're bigger and we're doing bigger runs of things that we used to, but we've just got operations that are much more dialed in, and a lot of that like midstream work does not fall on us the way it used to.
Sure. It sounds like you bootstrapped it from the start there.
Yeah, we did. We were fortunate to wrangle a little bit of investment money, like, in the grand scheme of things, a very, very small amount spread out over a significant amount of time. But yeah, we were super scrappy. I mean, when we were getting the brand off the ground, like we were literally pulling old dead stock fabric off the racks at the factory, cutting it up into shirts and ties and stuff, and going to like street fairs and markets and selling there, as we were, using every dollar we had to build a custom website at the time, which seems insane now, 9 years later, with Shopify being as good as it is. But yeah, we were doing that and just super scrappy. And then as we got the website established and started building a little bit of a presence, we got a little clever about how we market ourselves. Because I mean, when I say we had no money, we had no money. Like, I think we did $200,000 in revenue our first year, with a lot of mouths to feed. So what we did is we, back then, Tumblr was the big kind of influencer platform, and we would dig up people whose aesthetic we liked on Tumblr, or who were an influencer in like the fashion world in some way, and we would pitch them like, hey, co-design a collection with us. You will make the stuff that you're dreaming about, and you help us market it, and we'll pay you a commission on the sales. And that's really how we got our first big rush of like social media following and customers and exposure to places outside of Chicago, was by leveraging relationships with bigger and bigger sort of influencers, which turned into brands. And that was really the genesis of how we kind of built the business up with no marketing budget.
Well, that's amazing. And then when was the day, or what was the time when you moved towards the hospitality? And that was Alinea with Grant Achatz?
Yeah. So we haven't had a ton of one-on-one interaction with Grant, but he was involved in the very beginning of the decision-making on the uniforms. But it was honestly, it's pretty lucky to look back on. Dave Barron, who was the executive chef at Next back then, he knew Tim, my partner. I can't even remember how. I think like he might have known his sister in college, something like that. But Dave liked our stuff and asked if we would want to take a crack at doing new uniforms for Next and Alinea, because they weren't thrilled with the current vendor they had. So we went all out on this. I mean, we were meeting with servers, meeting with Grant, meeting with Dave, meeting with GMs, getting feedback on the design, on the functionality. And we made these just like perfect. We don't make anything like it still. It's so unique to Next and Alinea. But we made these server jackets, and they still use them to this day. And they just were exactly what they wanted, and word travels fast in this industry. So that was like say early 2013, I think,
Oh
is
wow,
when
that
we
was
started
quick.
doing that. Yeah, yeah, it was like very like beginning of our second year in business, I think, is when it happened. And our whole thing was like, hey, we've built this collaborative platform for our brand. Like, why not do it with the best restaurant in the world? And
Absolutely.
then yeah, then Goose Island reached out because they were fairly recently coming off their acquisition by AB InBev, and they wanted to like solidify their Chicago roots. So we did some merch and some uniform stuff. They didn't even have a tap room back then, so it was just merch. And they filmed a video at the factory, and we did the whole riding the green line from
Mhm.
their brewery to our factory, and yada yada yada. It was really cool, really well done. And they're also still a customer, and we've got some pretty good friends out of Goose Island as well. Yeah, and then it just kind of started growing from there. And the big inflection point was 2015 when Soho House opened in Chicago. That was the big like sort of come to Jesus moment where I mean we did this and we still get inbound traffic from the blog entry we made about the uniforms we did for Soho House 5 years ago. Like that's still driving SEO
Isn't
traffic
that
for us.
amazing? Isn't that amazing for SEO?
Crazy.
Some like post, we see that all the time. There's a post that is really that just seems the search engines latch onto it, and it's your golden ticket.
Yeah. I think it got picked up. I think there was a decent amount of Pinterest traffic from it too. It's getting
Mhm.
pinned a lot. Like they were just really cool. I think to this day, it's probably in my top two or three, like just top to bottom, holistically perfect uniforms we've done for like the space to the style to everything. And they were awesome to work with, and it was really fun. And there's just a lot of eyeballs on that project, so it was a big deal when it opened in Chicago. It was a huge deal, and it really just accelerated from there. And about 20 God, I feel like I lost a year of my life. So I'm like rewinding how many years everything's been. I think like 2018, we made the decision like wind the brand down that year and just fully focus on uniform and workwear stuff beginning in 2019.
Hmm.
So that's what
That's
we did. And instead of investing into menswear stuff while making a bunch of custom uniform stuff as well, we just started investing in like perfect core uniform pieces that built out that kind of core uniform collection over time, which now you can look on our website. It's pretty robust, just our core in stock offerings. And then of course we still do all the custom stuff for the clients that want it as well.
Yeah. What percentage do you think's between your core offerings and your custom work?
That's a good question. I should probably look at the financials there. Pretty much every project we do now has at least one element of our core items, what we
Mhm.
call our in stock items in it. And a lot of the custom stuff now is a little bit like before we were like custom sourcing everything we did. So like shirt fabrics, we're going through the mill in Japan and looking at the swatch cards and sampling and this, and it's just like it adds lead time. It adds, you know, as I'm sure anytime there's another variable introduced, there's another thing that can go wrong. So we now a lot of the custom stuff we do, like we'll still do custom aprons, custom dresses, stuff like that, but the majority of the custom things we're doing now are enamel pins, baseball
Mhm.
caps, knit caps, aprons, things that aren't as size specific and
Sure.
are a little bit easier for us to just upload the artwork and have the factory make, as opposed to like testing out a new shirt fabric to see how it washes. Like we've got our core fabrics and stuff pretty dialed in.
And your core style is all
Yeah.
pretty good there.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, I love your styles. Now,
Thank
for
you.
what's the process like? Should a winery tasting room want to like bring all their staff on brand and
Yeah.
give them an apron, give them a
Yeah, totally.
required
So
shirts?
we're actually just finalized an order with a new distillery in Illinois the other day, and she's pretty much getting all of her stuff up our website, like our in stock website stuff. I don't even know that I don't think we're even doing any like custom embroidery or anything. It's literally like get your sizes from your staff and send it to us, and we'll put together an order and an invoice, and we'll ship it to you. If it's all in stock stuff, it usually goes out within a day.
Yeah, that's amazing, and that's something that I see a lot in a lot of the winery tasting rooms we visit. There's almost a disconnect between the and I don't want to bash any tasting rooms, but there's
Yeah.
oftentimes a disconnect between the perception of the brand and then the people standing behind the counter. And it
Yeah.
and not this everybody needs to have a full uniform, but something on
Mhm.
point, whether it's an apron, whether it's a shirt, really helps unify that.
Yeah, cohesive element for sure. Yeah, and it could just be that the ecosystem of wine tasting rooms is a little bit newer than that of hotels and restaurants. I know breweries, like we've done stuff for a handful of breweries, and those are generally a bit more casual, like, it's t-shirt and maybe an apron, than obviously like the lobby bar at a hotel. But, the way we always talk about it is like you're opening, say, a new place, right? Whether it's a new tasting room or a new 300 room hotel or a 25 table restaurant. Nowadays, there's so much that goes into building. It's not just like, hey, let's make good food and make sure our staff is well trained. You've got an interior design firm making sure it's aesthetically on trend and on point. You've got, oftentimes you're hiring graphic designers to do the fonts and the menus and the brand assets, and you're getting a sound design guy to make sure that the ambiance of the sound is hitting every table perfectly. Like, at the end of the day, you want that first impression when you walk in, but the biggest thing that gets the impression of your restaurant across, aside from the food, is your staff, right? Like, you will remember if you had a really good or really bad server, or the bartender was knowledgeable and friendly, and the staff is able to get that point across and be like an ambassador of the brand if they look like they're on kind of an extension of the brand in their appearance as well. So that's where I think the uniform side of what we do is really important, is that it's always very thoughtful with the color scheme and the aesthetic and the vibe that the place is trying to get across,
Absolutely. Now, with most of the restaurants being closed across the country the past year, how did that impact your guys' business? Did you have to pivot at all?
Well, one big thing is we did a lot more business in Florida and Texas than we had in previous years, which is awesome. We've got a pretty sizable customer base all of a sudden in like the greater Austin area, which, I mean, Austin's blowing up in general. But yeah, the biggest sort of pivot we made, and I'm so hesitant to use that word because it's such like I think it was such a techie, buzzy word these days. But yeah, I mean, at this time last year, I was frantically filling out PPP paperwork, hoping we could get enough money to, we had some cash in the bank. And when that was gone, I wanted to make sure we stayed paid for the couple months that the pandemic was going to keep everyone shut down. Fortuitously, a friend of ours that owns a couple bars reached out to us like right at the beginning of March. And he was like, hey, my staff's gonna get crushed. No one's going to be going to bars for a couple of weeks. Like, you guys want to whip together a tea design, and we'll do a fundraiser and see if we can offset some of the tips I mean, this is how we were thinking at the beginning of March last year. Like, let's offset some of the tips we're going to lose over the next few weeks. It wasn't like a fundamental bloodletting of an entire industry for a year. But so we put together these tea designs, and we had a friend of ours who runs Slow Down Co. PR company here in Chicago. And she was like, hey, I got a couple other restaurants that would want to get involved in this fundraiser. They'll help amplify the voice and we can get their staff some money. We said, yeah, sure. Great. We put these teas up for pre-sale, and it was like insane. It got picked up everywhere. We had over 100 bars and restaurants signed up. We had to cut off signups because, we didn't want to spread it too thin. And we did all the exact numbers are going to escape me now, but we did something like $40,000 in sales in like the first 2 days. And then we had Cody Hudson, who's a good friend of ours. He's a partner in Land and Sea Department, which owns some of the coolest and best places in Chicago. He's also a very well-known artist, and he reached out and said, hey, I'd like to do some designs to keep this fundraiser going because this thing is getting worse and worse. So we did that, and we had another local artist named Laura Berger who does like really rad graphic artwork. We actually ended up making a blanket with some of her art that she donated. And all told, we ran the fundraiser for about 6 weeks and raised about $275,000 for out of work. I mean, obviously we had cost of goods sold and shipping and stuff, but we didn't take a penny of profit out of that. And we were able to donate something like 60 or 70% of the gross sales to out of work hospitality workers.
That's awesome.
So we got a couple $1,000s to each restaurant that signed up. We, felt like a lot at the time. It felt pretty insignificant by the time September rolled around and everyone was still shut down. But the fortuitous part of that is my partner, Tim, was like, hey, we got to roll out face masks. People are doing it. It's something maybe we could sell a few. We can make them. We have the fabric in house. And we rolled out face masks right at the end of that fundraiser. And within 12 hours, blue chambray and gray chambray face masks were the two best-selling items we'd ever sold.
Really? Not
Yeah,
surprised.
And that just went absolutely. I mean, we had I think we were back ordered 2 months on the first run of face masks, and then we had people come to us because they saw ours and they were good, and they said, "Would you make some for me? I'd like to resell them, or I want them for my group or whatever." And we ended up doing our face mask revenue last year was, I won't give exact numbers, but it was pretty close to our total revenue from 2019.
Oh man, where do you see that going now as we're coming out of the pandemic? You think face masks are going to be around for a while?
No, our sales have trickled off. We still sell some per week, but that faucet has been turned off.
That was a true pivot.
Yeah, I'm fine with it because I've been vigilant about wearing my mask, and I think everyone else should be as well. I'm very excited to not have to wear them at some point in the near future. So I'm okay with losing that revenue stream if it means that everyone can see each other's faces and we can start putting this thing behind us, hopefully in the semi-nearish future.
Oh, absolutely. Have you started to see an uptick in uniform sales and?
Yeah. The big thing is, a lot of hotels, as I'm sure you're aware of the life cycle of hotels, there's the fundraising, there's the construction, there's the build out and everything. So a lot of the 2020 hotels got pushed into 2021, but all the 2021 hotels are still opening in 2021. So we've got a lot of projects that we're working on right now. And, we're getting we're selling a lot of our in-stock uniform pieces because people are like, oh shit, we're open in a week. What do you have for us? Because everything's just happening so quick. So yeah, it's been good. I'm optimistic about the future for sure.
I am too. We're based here in Southern California, in Carlsbad area, and a big hotel just opened up here, right on the coast, and about 3 new restaurants are about to open, including Matsu from William X. New venture Matsu.
Oh, opening. Cool! Very nice.
So it's good to see that energy of things opening again.
Yeah, totally. It was, being in Texas, we were in rural Texas for the last month with my family. And so we didn't do a whole lot of going out, but I did go up to Austin a couple times for work, and, people were very, very respectful still with the face masks on, walking around and at their table when the server approached, but places were full and people were sitting outside and people were eating. And it's a little scary. It feels weird kind of jumping back into this, but I don't know what it's like out there, but in Chicago, we're almost at the point where if you want to get vaccinated, you're able to get it at this point. So a lot of people I know have gotten them, and a lot of people in the industry are now getting them. So it's starting to feel a little bit safer that you're not putting yourself at risk to go out. And also the people that are serving you are now able to kind of pull themselves out of that risk as well.
And that's important too. Yeah, my wife just got her vaccine. I'm a little younger.
Congrats.
I think they're not going to let me get it for another month or so, but we'll see.
Well,
but, we're the restaurants here have opened up. I mean, we ate out last week, and it was
nice.
It was nice to be inside again.
Yeah. My wife and I had we went to one of our clients had a new restaurant opening on the other day, and my wife and I went and ate inside, and it was very comfortable and fine.
That's great. What advice would you give a new restaurant or even a winery who's got their tasting room and they're trying to implement some sort of a uniform policy? How do you talk to the staff about that? They've gone from just wear whatever you want to now this is what you want to wear.
Yeah, I think it's important, especially if you've got an existing staff that you're trying to switch over from no uniforms to uniforms. Give them some feedback and some a seat at the table for that decision-making process. Because what we've seen plenty of times, people are like, oh, we're going to switch over to uniforms, and then they're uncomfortable or they don't like it and they liked it the way it was before. So get them excited about it. That's one of the big things that I feel like our brand kind of gets across now that I don't talk about as much, but early on, that was a big talking point. It's hey, we're going to put your staff in a uniform that when they're off their shift, they can walk down to the bar to have a shifty at the end of the day and untuck their shirt and roll their sleeves up, and they're going to look and feel comfortable, not like they're in a server uniform and everyone's staring at them, So that's where I think just making sure that they're comfortable with what they're wearing and you're not trying to put a round peg into a square hole.
You hit that nail right on the head. Your clothing looks like something. It is something you would wear outside of work. It doesn't look like your stock uniform. Get the name.
Right. Yeah. It's an ironic.
It doesn't look like your generic uniform that you're assigned when you on your first day of work. It actually looks like something you would have chosen to wear to that place of work.
Yes, it's a lot better than the server uniform I wore when I was 22, and it was like a Mandarin collar, 100% polyester maroon shirt with an enormous embroidery and like black baggy slacks and black shoes.
I can relate. I remember my first job at SeaWorld was we were assigned those polyester uniforms, and you had to wash it about 200 times before it actually got soft.
Nothing like 100% poly uniform working outside in California too.
Oh yeah, no. So that is a good tip though, to bring the staff into that conversation so that it isn't something that looks like it's just being foisted upon them. It's a group decision, and if if the style's there, which you have, the staff would embrace it.
Yep. And then I would say, conversely, if you're opening a new place and you're looking to institute a uniform program, have as few people as possible involved in that decision making, because we've also seen a lot of projects where we have something going and it's looking good, and then there's, oh, actually, this person has an opinion. This person has an opinion. Design by committee is never the best way to a successful ending, I don't think.
Yeah. What do they say? I know it's probably bad if you like camels, but a camel is a horse designed by a committee.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
No, I get it. Yeah, don't bring too many people in. So going into 2021, what advice can you give the hospitality industry?
I don't know that I am in any position to give the hospitality industry any advice. I would tell people, the thing that I'm observing is I think people are really ready to get out and back and doing things. And I think the only advice would be like, if you manage to stick it out for the last year, be excited. I think it's going to be a good, fun year. And I think it's going to bleed into 2022 quite a bit as well. Because it's going to take a little while, but the wheels are turning, and I think everyone's stuck tight for this whole entire hellish stretch, and now's the time to reap the rewards, I think.
I agree. I had a conversation the other day with someone that we were talking about the Spanish flu back in 1918.
Sure, that's a topic of conversation all the time.
Yeah, consistently. But as the people from the Spanish flu came out of it, that's what gave way to the Roaring '20s in that year of those years of just jubilation.
Yeah. Now we just got to avoid the Great Depression afterwards, and World War II.
Well, let's hope it doesn't track point by point, but looks like we're going towards it. So when you're not selling clothes and designing clothes, what do you like to do for fun?
I'm with my kids a ton, and they are luckily a lot of fun. I've got a nearly 6-year-old and a nearly 4-year-old. So we spend a lot of time together, and obviously with my wife as well. And then aside from that, I tend to like hobbies that I'm terrible at. So I play guitar a lot, and I've been golfing a lot more, and I am moderately better at guitar than I am at golf, but I'm pretty bad at both. So that's generally my hobby is doing things that I suck at and trying to get reasonably decent at them.
That's it's as long as you're having fun.
Yeah.
I know I love golf, but I'm probably
I love the idea of golf.
I like being out there.
Going golfing. Yeah, exactly. I don't like every single drive I hit, but other than that, I'm good.
That's fun. So, Jim, when we were talking before the show, you said you probably had a discount code for someone.
Oh yeah, that's right. So let me make sure I jotted it down. Let me make sure I don't give them the wrong code, but we're going to do 20% off your first order for any customers that use the code BARRELS20. That's all caps, BARRELS 20.
BARRELS20.
Yep. And that's 20% off your first order, anything on the site. And the website's stockmfgco.com. And all our social handles the same at stockmfgco.
Oh, that's very generous. Thank you.
Yeah, you got it.
So today we've been talking with Jim Snediker, CEO of Stock. And sorry, guys. We're at our house here and someone just knocked on the door. So
great.
What?
Cut it. Fix that in post.
Or not. It's a real show. No editing here. Anyways, Jim, thank you so much for talking with us. And please be sure to use this coupon, BARRELS20, to get 20% off of your first order. Thank you
Yes,
so much
sir.
for being on the show.
Thank you, Drew. Appreciate you having me. Talk soon. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Legends Behind the Craft podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.